is a matter of fact.
This is Harun Mwau that I know, and nobody knows another person well. Even your own spouse, you do not know your own spouse fully. There is a thing or two you may not know, only God knows. So the little that I know about Hon Harun Mwau, I'll disclose it here. When I joined the police as a recruit, Hon Harun Mwau was one of my teachers. He was a musketry instructor. He was one of the inspectors who worked in the Chief Musketry Instructor's office. The Chief Musketry Instructor was Chief Inspector Onyego. There were several inspectors, and he was one of them, but he was not the Deputy Chief Musketry Instructor. Those days, when a recruit went to shooting range, he had to be accompanied by an NCO. But instructions were that any ammunition used through a gun for practice purpose, for training purpose or practice purpose, if you're in the police station and you're going to one of the shooting ranges around there as police officers, the person in charge of range has to be a chief inspector and above. That is those who are in the field. But in Kiganjo or any other training colleges, police training colleges, AP training college, GSU, stock theft, an inspector has to be there for firearm to be used. Now they used to rotate the inspectors, so he's one of the inspectors who used to come and be there while we were live shooting. When he was there, I remember whenever he used to check our targets, he used to look at it. You know, he was one of the best sharpshooters in Kenya at that time. I believe he still is. So he'd come and look at your target, and he would really admonish you and say, I wish you would have missed shifters this way. I wish you would have missed Ngorokos this way. And his instructors who were in the musketry department used to put on Django uniform. He is one of the few police officers who never shaved their beards. I never found out why, but I know of Mukuru Njeru, whom we were working with in Wajir. He had a medical problem, so he was allowed to leave. So Harun Mwau used to look like Savimbi or Ojukwu of the Nigeria. That is one thing I noticed. Another thing I noticed was that he used to commute. He used to live in Nairobi. Those days, nowadays it's a bit understandable, but those days he was an inspector and he used to stay in Nairobi. And every morning he would go to Kiganjo and come back. So that is how I came to know him. And I'm told that he used to work at the vigilance office, and he differed with some people, so they transferred him to Kiganjo thinking that he would leave that place. In every police formation, there are two officers who work at night on duty, just like teachers on duty. We have a chief inspector who is called officer on duty. And then we have an inspector called a duty officer. But in training institutions like Kiganjo, APTC, GSU training school, stock theft training school, and so on, we have a sergeant who is on duty who is called duty sergeant or NCO. So every day, you know, these people used to be given work, duty at night. When it became his time for duty, he would take the duty roster for all the inspectors, and he would look for an inspector especially those who are about to go on leave. And he would tell him to come with his payslip, and he would look at the place where they say total earnings, not total deduction, but total earnings before deduction. And he would offer to pay that person for him to work for him that day. The officer would agree. So if the officer is working in a certain department, let's say physical education, he would train recruits on physical training or coursemen, and then in the evening he would work for him, and then the following day he would come back and work in his normal. Police, they allow you, if you cannot get permission from your boss, police allow you to make arrangements with an officer of your rank or higher to do your job. But should that officer mess in any way, then you are to blame. So he would give those people money to work, and he was so fair that he would give all of them opportunity. He would start with Inspector A, reach up to Inspector Z before starting with Inspector A. Another thing I used to notice was that at that time we had the deputy director of junior training wing was called Chief Inspector Michuki. Chief Inspector Michuki was a brother to Michuki of Michuki Rules, and they were both sons of Senior Chief Michuki. These two were very rich, super rich. They were richer than the commandant, who was 5 or 6 ranks ahead of them. It was rumored that this is how Michuki got his money. He was before going to Kiganji, he was an inspector of GSU. And Jomo Kenyatta and other people who used to smuggle coffee from I'm forgetting the name of the place along Kenya-Uganda border, they would escort coffee belonging to rich international people all the way to Embakasi airport. And then one day, Chebukube, the place is called Chebukube, they would escort coffee. Then one day they were escorting a certain foreigner, and then the lorries had mechanical problems on the way. By the time they reached Embakasi airport, already the plane had taken off. So this foreign international trader turned to Michuki and said, if you could be having 1 million, I would have you just give me so that I follow. I take a plane back home, and I'm sure that tomorrow, if the plane comes back tomorrow, you'll sell the coffee for 2 million. Michuki went to his brother. His brother was the general manager of Kenya Commercial Bank. Kenya Commercial Bank then was at the National Archives today. Kencom was not there. So he went to Kenya National Archives, which was Kencom. His brother went to the strong room, gave him 1 million shillings. He gave it to that person. Took the coffee to GSU training school, which was nearby. The following day, the coffee went abroad. He was given 2 million. He returned the 1 million to Kenya Commercial Bank, and that was the seed money that General Smart started off, and he became super rich. He was known as General Smart because Kiganjo people are smart always, but the days when we have parades is when people are extremely smart. And Chief Inspector Michuki used to be as smart always. You could not differentiate parade day and an ordinary day. So that is why he was called General Smart. In Kiganjo we have several messes. Each cluster of students had their own mess. But then teachers had 2 messes. There is junior staff mess and senior staff mess. Senior staff mess is what we can call officers mess. So whenever Michuki and Harun Mwau used to meet, there used to be a competition as to how each would outbuy the people there. So when, and I remember Muslims used to benefit from that because a Muslim inspector so could be taking soda, but when they came, say patie kila mtu ile anataka, they would order mzinga and then just keep quiet, and when once these people have gone, the Muslim would take the 2 or 3 mzingas that he has and sell it in Kiganjo town at a throwaway price and get some money. I also noticed something when I was a recruit. Michuki used to, he's the first person who I ever saw who had a trading in vehicles. Those days the vehicles used to have only, we didn't have, nowadays we have 984C, 984D. The D at the end used not to be there. So if the vehicle was KQ something, and after the end of the KQ, when the vehicle started coming KR, he would take his Peugeot back to Marshall's and be given a KR, and he would top up. That is when I came to know about trading. Another thing I wanted to say about Harun Mwau was that when he was at the office, there are occasions when he could go into dreamland for 30 to 1 hour. The NCOs would look at him and just be quiet. Those days, you could not buy more than 3 packets of rice. You had to get, if you wanted a bundle, you would go to the DC's place and be given permit to buy a bundle at either Kenya National Trading Corporation or National Cereals and Produce. So the NCOs would wait until the time when he was in dreamland, because if you disturb him, he would be annoyed and say that you have disturbed a business deal running into millions of shillings. But NCOs would wait, the musketry NCOs would wait until he is out of his dreamland, and then they would request that he pays for the rice that they can pay at the end of the month. And he would give them money cash, and they would go and get the rice in a bundle. But towards the end of the month, he would not even be around because he would be in Nairobi executing the plans that he had planned. Now, how did the Mwau become rich? There's a time at Embakasi, ICD, Internal Container Depot, where it is believed that he used to keep drugs and whatever. I cannot comment on that, but if it is true, this is how he initially became rich. He joined the police just like any other recruit, and he went through the normal selection, and during his recruit time, he happened to be a marksman. And when he was still a junior officer, Kenya used to have, that was before Minister for Tourism Matthews Ogutu banned game hunting. He used to be hired for game hunting. When Kenya's banned game hunting around I-70, that is the time when Middle East, they had found oil. And so Arab princes became super rich and built palaces, and they would want to have stuffed animals within their houses, within their lounge. So they would hire him from Kenya, and he would go to North Pole or even South Pole to look for those rare animals and shoot them. And that is how he became super rich. And there's a time he was called to go to Kiganjo for an inspector's course, and he said the 2.5 months course, he would lose millions. He would rather not even be made an inspector. And that is why some people even still refer him to as Sergeant Harun. But he was given inspector on merit because he said he cannot waste that time. He would have made millions. That is how he became rich. And during those days when he was in Kiganjo, or when he was in the police, he used to be called John Harun. I just came to know, he came to use the third name Mwau because in politics, as a sharpshooter who used to go around the world, he wanted to have a Negro-like name. But in politics, he wanted to have a Kamba name. That is all I have to say about John Harun Mwau, the little that I know.